Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we're going to be talking about Expeditions. This is designed by Jamie Stonemaier. The artwork is by Jacob Rosowski, and it is published by Stonemaier.
All right, so you guys may have heard of a little game called Scythe.
Just a little game. This really indie game that hardly anybody's ever heard of.
Right. Well, guess what? It did pretty well. And on top of that, what it really did was create a world, and it was based off this world of this art that existed from Jacob Rosowski, and it was incredible. It was kind of this future past, right? It was an alternative history, and it had all to do with this mechs roaming around as in farm territories in this kind of like Eastern Europe kind of area, and in Russia and stuff like that. And it was incredible. It was captivating, and the art was one of the coolest parts of Scythe, in addition to the really interesting kind of engine building that happened in Scythe. So, Expeditions. This is the sequel to Scythe. It is a sequel not only in theme, it just kind of takes place after the events of Scythe, but also there is some little Easter eggs in the gameplay as well that kind of harken back to Scythe while still being a completely different game.
Yeah.
All right, let me give you a quick overview of how to play. All right, here's our main board setup for Expeditions. Basically, across the bottom of the board, we have all of our southern tiles. Those are already revealed. Then we also have central and north tiles as well. Those have yet to be explored. Now, there are also 5 cards across the board kind of scattered around over here. Now, you can draw those a number of ways. Sometimes an effect will let you draw them based off of how close you are to them, whether you're adjacent to them or not. Other effects might say things like draw any face-up card. We also have a draw deck over here. A lot of effects will, let's say, draw cards from the deck as well. Inside that deck, there are 3 different kinds of things. There are items, meteorites, and quests. I'll go over the cards again when we get to our personal player boards, but basically all of them act the same way. You have some resources that you're going to be able to gather with them, and some effects that are going to happen when you play them, as long as you play them with the correct meeples. We have 5 different colors of meeples over here. Those are all different workers that represent different kinds of actions. You can collect those with actions on the board. So for instance, over here we have some tiles that say you can collect over here either a blue or yellow meeple if you go there and do one of your actions. There are 3 basic actions in this game, but each one of them has kind of more things that can happen as a result of doing those actions. As far as the main board is concerned, the 2 things that we're going to be mostly doing here are moving around and then gathering on the tiles. So for instance, if we were to do our action as a movement followed by a gather action, we would simply move 1 to 3 spots away from where we're starting off. In this case, the starting spot is this main board over here, which means you can go here, here, or here for your starting movement. And then the gather action simply says, take whatever resources or abilities are printed on the tile that you are currently landing on. In this case, it's take either a red or a green meeple. There are a lot of different effects that you might see on these tiles, especially the ones that are uncovered. All the cards are going to reference some of those same symbols as well, so it's really handy. On the back of the rulebook, you have all the different symbols listed. And then also we have some individual player aids that are going to give us some reminders of our different actions that we can do, as well as our symbols. Alright, so how do you explore? This is a game all about exploration. It's called Expeditions, of course. So, we're going to do some exploring. When we get to one of the tiles that has not yet been discovered, has not yet been flipped over, we're going to collect the little map token that's on top of that tile, and then you're going to flip over the tile. If you had any movement points left over, those are lost. Even if you can move up to 3 spots and you're only moving 1, once you've flipped over a tile, your movement is done for that round. Alright, so on our turn we can do something like this. We could go 1, 2, 3 spots. You can move through a spot that has another mech in it, however, you cannot land on it and finish your action in your turn on the same space as another mech. Alright, so now we're going to flip this tile over and collect that token. Alright, we've revealed some new actions on that tile, some new things that we can gather. We have 2 resources that we're going to be mainly dealing with. One is power, one is guile. So this particular one, it says we can gather 2 guile by landing on that spot, taking the gather action. However, there's also kind of a slash there, followed by another action. That action is the ability to upgrade one of your item cards. I'll explain what that means a little bit later on when we get to our personal player board, but for now, it's not even available to us. There's a little square around it that says we need to add some corruption to this tile. So corruption is in this bag over here. It says we need corruption of 5 or more. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw tiles from this bag until we've covered it up with 5 or more corruption. In this case, I just happened to pull a 5 out, so that satisfies that condition. If I would have pulled, like let's say, a 4 out, I would have had to pull another tile out and put that on top of there. Now, any actions that are covered up by corruption are not available until all the corruption has been removed from that tile. Somewhere in the north regions of the board, there's also a tile that has to do with this piece right here. This is a 20 corruption tile. Now on your personal player board, your 2 resources that you can carry, you can hold 10 of each. So normally you'd only be able to use one of your resources to finish off either a green or an orange tile. In this case, to clean up this corruption, you would need 10 of the guile and 10 of the power in order to clean that up. Now, there's a whole lot more to discover on the tile, so I'll kind of let you guys explore that as you play through it. One last thing I want to talk about on this part of the board is how you score. This is your scoring parameters down here. If you're familiar with Scythe, this is going to feel very familiar. There's all these different parameters along the bottom here, and basically once you've achieved one of those parameters, you're going to be able to score that particular item with one of your stars. If you're able to complete 4 quests, or if you're able to do 4 meteorites or upgrade 4 items, those are all going to give you a star by completing those. That one item over there by itself, I talked about that 20 corruption, that's an objective by itself. Any other 7 corruptions are going to be giving you a star. Having 8 active cards, or having 7 meeples or 5 exploration tokens, that's going to basically give you one of your stars. But similar to the popularity track in Scythe, we also have a little chart over here talking about our different item cards. The more item cards you have built, the more you're going to get points based off your stars. So if you built no items, each one of your stars is going to get you 5 points. But if you build 1, each one of them is going to be worth 6 points. And if you have 3 or more of your items built, each one of your stars is going to be worth 10 points. Any corruptions you've gathered is going to be worth 2 points apiece. Some of your items are also going to give you some points. And then you're also going to be gathering some points as the game goes on as you explore the board. You're going to add up all those points, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins. And now I'll give you a quick overview of the personal player boards. Alright, here are our individual player boards. There are actually several of them that you can choose from. They all have their own special abilities. This particular one gives you extra range. This particular one says you can gain cards directly into your hand. The one we're looking at right now, whenever we do the Vanquish action, which is how we get rid of corruption, that's going to allow us to give us a discount by each color by 1. So each one of the boards is going to give us a little bit of asymmetric abilities, but then also each player is randomly going to get a character and a companion card. And those are all different as well, and they're kind of paired up together. So since we have this pairing over here in the red, we've got this pairing in the blue, etc., etc. So each one you have gives you different abilities as you're playing the game. I mentioned earlier that you had 3 different choices on your turn of actions you can take, and you're going to usually do 2 of them at a time. And that's kind of all driven by this little top corner of your board over here. Starting off with, you're going to be able to play all 3. A move, a play, and a gather. So you can move around on the board, you can play cards, and you can gather whatever resources off the tile that you're on. And you can do those in any order. When you play a card, the left side of your board over here is actually considered your hand. This is your hand of cards. You actually don't have a physical hand of cards. What you're going to do when you play a card from your hand is you're going to take it and you put it on the right side of your board. Now it's considered part of the active row. When you play it, you're going to be able to gather some resources based off of the top left of the card, and there might be some special cards, especially like the ones that you start with, that say if you've gathered some certain parameters or done certain things, you might be able to even get extra resources. Along the bottom of the card, there's going to be extra text as well, extra special abilities that you can do. However, you can only activate those if you have the correct color meeple, and you play that color meeple on that card. Normally at the beginning of the game, you would not have any of the meeples yet, and both of your resources would be all the way down at 0. But just to kind of show you guys what this looks like, if we were to play this card and we had a yellow meeple, we would place it on that card and now activate its ability. There's a ton of different abilities in this game, a ton of different cards you can do. This particular one says you can either rescue an active card, meaning taking it over here from your active row and putting it back into your hand of cards so you can use it later, or you can do a Vanquish action. This particular card says, when you do the Vanquish action and you remove one of those corruption tiles, if it was the last corruption tile and you were revealing a new action, you can even take that action if you want to. So at the beginning of the game, your cube is going to be here, and you can do all 3 of those actions. But after that, from here going forward, what's going to happen is you have to move that cube to cover up any one of the actions. So let's say we cover up the play action. Now this turn, what we do is we could move and we could gather. And again, we could do that in any order. But then for the next turn, we're going to have to move it again. Maybe this time we do a move and a play. And again, we have to keep on moving it. Maybe this time we do a play and a gather. You can never do the same 2 actions back to back on 2 consecutive turns. If you're ever at a point where you're out of cards in your hand and you want to get them back from your active row back into your hand over here, what you can do is you can refresh. What's going to happen is you're going to move your cube down here, and then all of your meeples are going to go back onto your main board, and any cards in the active row are going to be slid over to your hand. That does take up your entire turn, so basically you want to use that whenever you need to in order to get things going, but that's really going to be the only thing you do that turn, is just kind of refresh. But then your next turn, you're going to be able to move over here, do all 3 actions again, which is really great, kind of get you caught back up, and then you're going to go back into the same routine of moving that cube up and doing 2 actions every turn. Now, I mentioned there's 3 kinds of cards in the game. There are items, there are quests, and there are meteorites. And what you can do is you can do special abilities, to take certain actions that allow you to kind of claim those cards and tuck them under things. So, for instance, if we had an item, what we could do is we could use the action over there, tuck it under there, and now we got a special ability that you can use whenever you have an item that does not require you to have a meeple. And similarly, we have a meeple, or a meteorite. When you tuck it under here, you've got some kind of scoring ability that's going to be kind of stacking. So the more meteorites you place, the more times you'll be able to use those scoring abilities. And similarly, we have up top here, we have quests. Quests are going to require you to go to certain places and do the solve action. And once you've done that, there's going to be some kind of benefit you can gain. But also, that's going to be what's going to help your, what I call popularity. It's going to help your scoring based on how many stars you have. So you can solve quests, you can upgrade items, and you can meld meteorites. Those are the 3 actions that you can take to kind of tuck the cards underneath your board. And there are little riser stickers that you can add to the bottom of your boards as well, what makes it easier to slide things under them. With the exception of one of the characters, you can only hold 4 of each one of the cards under the board. And also, when you do the Vanquish action, and you take one of those corruptions, you're going to put it on your board, because you're going to score at the end of the game, but then also don't forget to spend whatever resources you needed to. So in order to take that 5 orange corruption tile, you will need to spend 5 of those power resources. I know I threw a lot at you, and that's not even the full teach of the game. There's a lot going on here, but hopefully gave you a good idea of what's going on. Remember, you want to get as many of those stars as possible, kind of by maxing out different categories, and you don't even get them automatically like you do in Scythe. In this case, you actually have to do a boast action, which is going to be on the board. It's going to allow you to claim those items. You're going to add up all of your scoring, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game wins.
As always, the production quality was phenomenal with this. All the bits were great, the tokens were great, the mechs were great. And one of the things that I thought was interesting, and I just would not have thought about this if I were designing something, but I thought was brilliant. So you're tucking all these cards under your board. So the game actually came with stickers, so you could put it under your board, so it just lifted it just a little off the table so that you could easily tuck these cards under. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so brilliant and so simple. I just love that little nice touch on that.
I liked the discovery aspect of this game. It's kind of, obviously right into the theme. It's baked right into it, the expeditions, right? And it's got this kind of mysterious, almost alien thing going on that we don't know about as the players necessarily going in. And we don't dive too deep into it. It's pretty mechanical once you're really happening.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I liked how when you go into a new tile that hasn't been discovered yet, you flipped it over. And a lot of times it was covered in this corruption, this extra resources that you had to remove in order to get to the actions underneath. So a lot of times you have one of those exploring style games, you'll be able to go there, you'll be able to explore, and you'll be able to start using that tile immediately.
Yeah.
Now, there's some smaller parts of the tile that you could use immediately, but almost always all the really good stuff, the ability to boast, which is score points, or the ability to tuck your meteorites, like Bethany was talking about, under your cards and stuff like that, those are all hidden underneath all this corruption. So then once you discovered it, then you had to go fight the corruption, so then you could do the stronger action. So it's kind of a tiered action, and you had to build up to it, but it was very satisfying when you were able to put it all together.
So there's an engine building aspect of it to the cards. You're getting and drafting cards, and then you're able to use those cards' ability, and if you get workers, you can use an additional ability. However, the large majority of all the cards that you're getting for that, you'll eventually want to tuck under your board. So there's this aspect of you want this stuff to use the resources, but honestly at the end of the game you need the points, so you have to tuck those eventually. In the game when it ends, it's not like okay, this triggers the ending, we each get 5 more turns. It's nothing like that. You have to have this prepared before the game ends, so that just that tension of, and that good decision making of when do I use this card and when do I sacrifice it because I need to tuck it for the points at the end of the game. It was a really, really good stressor, of when to do that.
I appreciate that there was a lot of different ways you could get points, and there's kind of a different, not different paths to victory because they're all related, but there's different ways that you can focus on to get your points. So for instance, there's the meteorites. The meteorites kind of almost stack. When you place one, you trigger it. When you place the next one, you trigger it and the previous one. When you place the third one, you trigger all 3. And so they kind of build up off one another. That's a great way to get points. Items, they're all worth a certain amount of points. There's a lot of ways you can get coins just within the game by using the card play, getting cards and getting coins that way, which is your victory points. There's also a lot of different objectives, so that's another one of those kind of things that relates back to the original Scythe. There's like 7 different objectives that you can try to fulfill, and they're all very, very different. And if you max out a certain category, you're going to be able to then use that bonus action to fulfill that category. Maybe you wanted to get a whole bunch of exploration. Maybe you wanted to use a lot of meteorites. Maybe you wanted to get a whole bunch of different people out there. Maybe you wanted to fight the corruption a whole lot. Whatever it was, you can do that, and that is a valid way to get a star. And no matter what, if you were using the quests, if you're solving those quests to build that up, it's kind of a multiplier for your stars. So you want to do at least 1 or 2 of those in order to help out your score as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of work your own strategy to get those stars in order to get a lot of points.
I would recommend that if you're playing this game, you play 2 games. You play another game to learn it and another game back to back. I know that in the first game, for me personally, it was extremely frustrating. I didn't feel like I could do anything. I was just a little, I was a lot confused in the first game, but you're building up stuff. So in the first couple of rounds, you really can't do anything. You don't have a lot of workers, if any workers, so you can't do the special abilities on the cards. A lot of the abilities that you want to do, those haven't been revealed yet on the board, and even if they have been revealed yet, you don't have enough of the resources to defeat the corruption to be able to do it. So the first game was just really frustrating because I wasn't grasping the ramp-up aspect of it, which is why I would recommend if you play this game to play that first game and then immediately play it again right afterwards. I did that, and it totally made sense to me. I understood I'm not gonna be able to do a lot for the first, like, I don't know, fourth of this game while I'm ramping up and building that stuff, and then I wasn't nearly as frustrated. But my first play of this, I was extremely frustrated.
Yeah, I also would say that the player count on this, it says 1 to 5, and from what I understand, solo play is pretty cool. We don't do the solo gaming. We played it at 2 player for the majority of our plays, and it shined at 2 players. It was so good. Everything just kind of made sense at 2 players. One person's exploring this half of the board, one person's exploring this half.
Yeah.
There's 2 spots where you can grab meeples, and so you both can have access to those. There's always a spot uncovered that's available to use for those. In the kind of the middle tier of tiles, there's like 2 or 3 good spots for resources. Yeah. So there's never a spot where you're kind of locked out from getting some of the resources that you need. Okay, but then from there, 3, 4, and 5.
I wouldn't do it.
Boy, now you're talking about some hard times. Yeah. There's not any kind of there's a pretty clear first player advantage. There's only a couple good viable spots early on, and if you don't get one of those, you're just gonna be left to go, whatever, move around. And in late game, there's no it's not like there's an equal number of turns or anything like that. So it just doesn't work at the higher player counts. Things that you need, you just don't have access to. People are sitting on your tiles because you can't access tiles that someone is occupied by you. So things that you need, you just have to just wait around.
Those quests, like, it becomes really, really difficult to do those quests. And even the upgrade, the stars, to where you can put the stars on the board, there's only like 2 or 3 of those. And so if you're playing with a higher player count and everybody's trying to do that, you're just not going to be able to do that.
So it does a couple things. It stretches out the length of the game way beyond what's comfortable. And taking it from we play 2 players in about 60 minutes or under. It takes it to a much, much longer. It's kind of an exponential drag on of the game because not only is it just like, okay, well, you could double it. 2 players equals 4 players, equals 1 hour. 4 players would equal 2 hours. Not quite, because things stall out. The things you need, you can't get. So it's actually even longer than just doubling the time per player. So I would say we're calling this a 2-player game. Yes. We're calling this a 2-player game.
100%. Yes.
If you had to play with 3, you could probably get away with it and have a great time. But don't.
I would not do the 4 or 5.
Calling this a 2-player game. We had really, honestly, a great time with it too.
Yeah, so this is, as I said earlier, like, my first gameplay was just really frustrating. I was so upset when we were playing this, just ask Ryan.
I was like, what's going on here?
I was so frustrated. But with that said, after we played it a few times, it's a game that I was thinking about, and I remember, woke up this morning, I was like, it'd be a fun thing to do today? Play expeditions. So after I got through that hurdle of understanding that I had to ramp things up and that I wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do, once I grasped that and understood what the game wanted me to do and I leaned into what the game wanted me to do, I had a lot of fun. So much so that I was thinking about it later. I was thinking about a different strategy I might want to try. Like Ryan said earlier, there's different ways to victory, and so I want to try one of those other paths. And so I view that as a good sign that I was thinking about the game later, not in the sense of thinking about how much I hated it, but thinking about about it, wanting to go back to it.
Yeah, I've just been sleeping. I lost sleep over how much I hated this game.
This happened before.
That's true. Yeah, I loved the engine building in this game. I loved kind of the ability to plan ahead which colored meeples I had, which cards I would want to use, in what order, and then try to make the best kind of overall strategy, build up to the resources I needed to go tackle the corruption. So then I'd be able to use this card to be able to fulfill this thing. I love that engine building as it ramped up. I really enjoyed that. I love engine building games anyways, and this was a pretty cool, unique way of doing engine building that I hadn't really seen the same way before. Lots of cool, tough choices. Bethany mentioned, whether you tuck a card under and basically remove it from play, or do you keep on using it as an action over and over again that's really, really strong, or whatever the case is. Also, as I was reboxing it one of the times, I'm looking at it, I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty sure they intentionally designed this insert for more future content. So, I don't know what that means, but when that's coming, if anything. Yeah. But I'm very much looking forward to and excited for potentially future content for Expeditions and to see what they do with this in the future.
Everybody, thank you so much for watching it. Don't forget to subscribe so you can see our videos as they come out. Until then, you can find us in all of these places.
You guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye. You guys, thanks so much for watching. This game was provided to us by a publisher in exchange for a fair and honest review.
And if you want to see more stuff, check out over here to see something we think you might like.
And over here, we think that YouTube has picked out a great video for you you're going to love. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.